So, today we're here to talk about a very special Bloodborne character.
Yeah.
But Sin, they're all special.
But this one is beloved by a very special Bloodborne gamer.
Oh, yes. Definitely, yes. Very special indeed.
I feel like people who know you, I don't even need to write like a title in the title. I just need to write like teeny tiny coffee bean on podcast, and everybody will like instinctively know what the podcast is about.
They're just gonna be like, she's gonna talk about Micolash for longer than whoever in like her range of like physical vicinity is allowing her to talk about Micolash.
There we go.
just all the time.
I was about to say, Richard, do the intro, but then I'm scared you're gonna ask me what episode this is, and I honestly have no idea.
We'll do... Okay. Welcome to episode 17, 18, 19, 20. So insert whichever one of those is accurate. Of the Snack Covenant podcast about... supposedly about anything, but is mostly just about Dark Souls at this point.
Well, this is a Bloodborne episode.
Yeah, it's a Bloodborne episode.
You're confusing people, Richie.
Well, I'm confused.
You just had the Sumerian one out. Didn't that just happen?
Yeah, but that was like 2 weeks ago from my point of view.
Oh, of course.
And like from my point of view, the last thing we did was talk about Final Fantasy X with Xanadia's Cave.
Oh.
And Sinclair talked about her experiences with it. Which is that she did one dungeon in Final Fantasy 15.
I did it very brilliantly, though, so that counts for like 20 Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy 15, like, if you rounded down, could be Final Fantasy X.
Yes, if you subtracted 5.
Yeah.
You would get Final Fantasy X.
Perfect. It was a perfect podcast. Oh, Bean, yeah, I wanted to tell you about what Richie did. Yesterday, we recorded the most beautiful podcast that has ever been recorded in the history.
I want her to release her side of the audio now to prove that's not true.
It's gonna prove that it is true. But basically, we recorded a marvelous podcast, and then, Richie, what did you do?
I saved the file, and then when I opened it again, the file was empty. And there was no data in it, and I don't know what happened, and I think something went wrong when I was saving it.
So now I have like 3 hours of podcast, but my side only, and we're missing Rich's side, so we can't release it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
No, well, I think to be fair, a lot of your side is just you talking, because I had no idea what you were talking about, and I just said what.
Alright, so
Okay.
now that I proved my point, and Bean knows exactly what anime I'm talking about, so it wasn't that hard to guess, Richie,
It's
as you
SpongeBob.
made it seem.
It's definitely just
There we
SpongeBob.
go. It's just SpongeBob.
That's all it is.
Now we can move on to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, glorious leader.
You're welcome. Go on, Richie.
Now it's my responsibility.
Carry this podcast to the coast.
So
Bring it
this
on home.
podcast is now about Bloodborne again, and we're talking about the character of Micolash, host of the Nightmare, with Bean, who is a big fan of Micolash.
Yeah.
So, I guess Richie, because he's good at summing up things.
Whenever it's your job to
guess.
say something, you just say, Richard, what would you say?
Richard, what's happening?
Yeah. Richard, can you just briefly sum up the whole Micolash thing?
Won't that be the entire podcast then if we briefly sum it up?
No, just remind people of
Okay,
who
Micolash
is.
Micolash is a character
Did you
in
just sigh at
Bloodborne
me?
who...
Did you just go.
Yeah.
Oh, Bean, this is what I have to work with.
I see. It's okay. It's okay. I too have to deal with someone who does a disgusted sigh noise at me on a regular.
I know.
You have to keep in mind we've been recording for 2 hours already at this point.
I know. And I'm sure you're just like, yep, this is happening.
Thank God
As
Bean
usual.
is here for the podcast morale, Richie. Okay, Richie, so briefly remind us about who Micolash is.
Okay. So Micolash is a character in Bloodborne who is the head of a faction of the Healing Church who were referred to as the School of Mensis. Technically, the first time you encounter Micolash, he is already dead. You find his corpse in a chapel in it's a walled-off area of Yharnam called Yahogul, the Hidden City. And Yahogul, the Unseen Village. You find his corpse in an area called Yahogul, the Unseen Village. You don't quite understand what's going on. You just see this corpse wearing what appear to be academic robes and a large cage on his head. And when you touch this corpse, you end up in a strange sort of nightmare version of Bergenworth briefly, which you stumble through. As you escape the nightmare version of Bergenworth, you end up in an area called Nightmare of Mensis, which is a sort of like nightmare realm with a huge castle and sort of strange monsters you've never seen before around it. As you progress through the Nightmare of Mensis, Micolash is encountered about halfway through. You realize that the corpse of the person you touched there, even though their physical body has died, their soul/consciousness, whatever you want to call it, persists in this nightmare world as basically a living version of the person you saw wearing the same gear. And he is sort of stumbling around a large library area, muttering to himself, praying to something called Cos. Then when you encounter him, he notices you and he begins running away, and you attempt to chase him, and the boss fight will commence. Then the boss fight is very strange for the Souls games. It takes place over an extremely large area, and you basically just have to chase this guy through a huge library. And eventually you will corner him in a room where you have to fight him, and upon dying, he screams, "Now I'm waking up, I'll forget everything," which implies like he knows he is dreaming, but he doesn't realize his physical body is dead. And that is the end of Micolash, and he, presumably when he's defeated in the Dreamlands, his consciousness is just sort of snuffed out, and he's gone forever.
Aww.
And yeah, you find out a little bit more about what Micolash was doing as you progress through the area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I cannot reach high shelves. I need a lot of help.
But do you, when you can't reach the high shelves, stand there with a kitchen knife and just poke at things until they fall down?
And then they fall down and you catch them.
Yes, I've done that.
You see, Richie? This is because, oh my God, Bean, I've never loved you more in my life. Because you are proving so many points to Richie right now.
My boyfriend put my gin on the back of the fridge and I couldn't reach it, so I just stood there and just looked at it until he got it down. I was like, "Why did you put this at the back of the fridge? You know this is mine. Give me my gin down."
I think my boyfriend does that with Nutella, but he does it so I don't eat it all in one shot.
Yeah, just sit there with a tub of Nutella and a spoon, yeah. Living the good life.
Yay. Do you think Micolash loves gin and Nutella?
I think Micolash loves gin and absinthe. That's what I drank when I was at the con. I was fucked up on absinthe like half the time when I was just like running around as Micolash, because I'm like, this is exactly what a Victorian madman would drink.
So wait, do you think absinthe is the reason why Micolash thought he could contact the Great One through his cage?
I think absinthe is the reason why he just does what he does in general and tries to drink to forget. And just the fact that it's just the world that Bloodborne is in. I'm not particularly surprised that there's anyone that like is like Micolash, because it's so ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Once you start, I mean, think about it in anyone's perspective. Just like, okay, presuming that he was a previous scholar at Bergenworth, finds out about fucking like the orphan of cause and it's just, and like all that garbage, and then Lawrence leaves and he's like, yeah, let's keep doing this. Yeah, let's keep doing it. I want to get there. That's what I want. I'm gonna keep doing it. That's it. And then just completely it just I mean, I'm not saying he's insane, because he's obviously not crazy. I mean, he's crazy, but it's not like he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I feel like he's not crazy at all. I feel like he's just an intellectual who had a dream and a passion that he pursued, and then he kind of got it. He was almost there trying to do his thing, and then the hunter comes into his castle, his life, and kills him. I find that so unfair.
They're like, you walk into his house and you just murder him, and you have nothing else you can do.
Yeah.
I always felt that it's really similar to how Rom is, because you literally just like walk into her house and kill her. But everyone's like, oh, poor Rom, because she's super defenseless and she's not like talking at you. And everybody's like, no, Micolash deserved it. And I'm like, no, fuck you. Listen, he's not doing anything that you would like know as like wrong.
Well, aside from kidnapping an invisible baby, that may be from the anime series that I like, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the cow baby?
I'm pretty sure it's the cow baby.
Is Murgo the cow baby?
I think so. So, do you guys think Micolash succeeded in contacting the Great Ones?
Kind of.
I mean, yeah, I think that, I don't know if he was going about it wrong or what. Like, you don't know what would have happened if you just left him be.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, well, wait. To remind people, Richie, can you tell us what Micolash's great plan was?
Micolash's great plan was to steal Murgo, the child of Queen Yharnam, take Murgo to the Nightmare of Mensis, and use Murgo to beckon Kos, who is the great one that the Byrgenwerth scholars encountered at the fishing hamlet. And from what Micolash says during his boss fight, the story seems to be that the Byrgenwerth scholars initially used the Orphan of Kos to beckon Kos, and Kos sort of blessed the mind of Rom when Rom was a human, which transformed Rom into this spider thing. And Micolash sees that as like a failure, like Rom wasn't enlightened enough. And Micolash believes that because he is enlightened enough, if he comes in contact with Kos, instead of becoming a vacuous spider, he will become sort of the next great one.
He'll become a brain genius?
I think he already is a brain genius.
He'll become a sidewalk slug.
Yeah.
Just like you, if you do the
the
sidewalk slug ending.
He wants to become that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Which is what I call that ending, is sidewalk slug. Because that's what you are. You turn into a slug on the sidewalk.
So that seems kind of straightforward, but what I don't understand is that there's also a Mensis ritual going on in Yahar'gul.
Yeah.
So why is there this whole convoluted Yahar'gul story going on with the Red Moon and whatever, and the Thumerians working for Micolash, where all he wants to do is to beckon Kos in his nightmare?
One of my theories about that would be that the Thumerian bell-ringing women aren't actually working with Mensis. I don't think that there's any,
I don't think they are either.
Indication for that. So I was thinking that maybe that the Mensis ritual that happened that brought Micolash to be the host of the nightmare is what caused a rift and made the Thumerian blowing women come up from either a rift in fucking space-time or some shit, or come up from the chalices and then begin their own blood ritual.
Yeah, the Thumerians that work for Micolash are the ones with the sacks, the snatches.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're working for Micolash and they're collecting people for the ritual they're performing in Yahar'gul. But what happens after the Red Moon in Yahar'gul is all just a horrible accident.
Mm-hmm.
So the bell-ringing women, the piles of corpses, the one reborn, the kind of the werewolves that are made out of body parts that are killing the snatches and everything. That's all none of that was part of the plan. That was just like the ritual got out of control.
Okay, so the bagmen are collecting body parts for a ritual for Micolash initially.
I think we've talked about this a lot before, but like Thumerians just seem to be kind of like zombies. You can just direct them to do stuff for you. So like the church has the church servants, the like tall, pale ones working for them. Micolash has they're just called the kidnappers, I think. People call them snatchers. I think they just call them kidnappers internally, working for him. What they're doing is they're capturing people and they're bringing them to Yahagol. And they're keeping them in those cells. And then when the time comes for the ritual, they're all herded into the area called Advent Plaza. And there's some sort of mass sacrifice that summons the Red Moon. Yeah.
Okay. So...
Yeah, what happened in what order is slightly confused.
I've always been really confused about the age of the corpses in the Advent Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't... they've obviously been there for a long time, so... it's really...
We don't know, though.
But they're mummified, right? So...
Yeah, Micolash is a mummy.
The thing is, like, those corpses that are... The corpses we're talking about are ones that are, like, fused inside of a wall.
Yeah, those ones you don't know either.
Yeah.
Those are weird.
Yeah, you don't know where they're from, but at the same time, like, when you visit Yahagul before the Red Moon, when you come back again, there are other corpses that are new and fresh, and they look the same. They also have the same, like there's these corpses that they're in these sort of craters, and they're burning.
Mm-hmm.
And they look like it's the same texture that the ones in Advent Plaza have. And the burning corpses are presumably fresh, so...
Yeah.
I think the ones in Advent Plaza are fresh as well. Like that happened after we killed Rom and the Red Moon appeared.
Yeah. So I guess Bean, like a lot of people wonder what are those burning corpses for? What's their purpose?
I've never really thought about them in that way. I know that there's like this thing that at least I think somebody told me this. That's a hearsay thing, but if you basically get them to not be lit, the one reborn is just kind of like it doesn't do anything. Like, and I have done it before where I've gotten those cramped caskets to just like light themselves on fire and subsequently get those burning corpses to just go out and not be burning anymore, and then go into the one reborn fight. And it's just he doesn't vomit everywhere if you do that. At least that's what I've noticed. But apart from that, I don't know. They seem to be part of the... They seem to have something to do with the Chime Maidens, or with like the cramped casket type stuff going on, and those body parts that are just, the body parts that make up the one reborn. It seems just like a whole bunch of convoluted stuff that I don't really know what's happening exactly with those, but they seem to have something to do with one reborn, at least.
Yeah.
Richie, do you have any theories?
Well, like... The way that you activate the chalices and do the rituals is you use body parts. And like in the Thumerian Labyrinth, you find body parts that are like explicitly called things like inflicted organ and yellow backbone and stuff. And when you beat the One Reborn, you get one of those body parts, and it's the yellow backbone, and it specifically says like, this is like body parts that were used as bait to lure something. So it looks like what was happening in Advent Plaza is that they just like was this mass human sacrifice. There were just body parts everywhere. And that like called down, was instrumental in calling down the Red Moon. Because the Thumerians are attracted, and the Great Ones are attracted to all this death and decay. So it was like a sacrifice that summoned this god thing that was the Red Moon.
Okay, so the rituals that the Bell Maidens are performing, is that what summons the Red Moon?
No, the impression I get is that, like, what happens in the ritual is that they're sacrificing people in Advent Plaza.
Right.
And then this is happening like before the Red Moon happens. Because, like, you can speak to Adela in the cells, and she's like, they're coming to the cells and they're taking us, and I never see those people again, and I can hear all this screaming coming from the distance. And at this point in the game, you can't get into Advent Plaza.
Right.
So presumably all this shit's going on in Advent Plaza because it's not happening in the rest of Yahagol.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think is happening is they're doing all this shit to summon the Red Moon. Rom...
Right, there's Rom.
Somehow, they don't really go into specifics about this, but Rom is somehow holding back the Red Moon.
Right.
Like, Rom is stopping the Red Moon from breaking through. So when Rom dies, suddenly the ritual is completed, but, like, no one was expecting it, and they've been, like, building up to it all night. So it's this sudden, like, like a bomb goes off and like just decimates the whole city. And that, I think, is what summons the Bell Maidens, because suddenly there's all this, like, there's the Red Moon, there's the Great Ones, there's this body parts everywhere. So, like, the Bell Maidens just sort of appear and they're like, oh, good. Like, there's all this, like, we're necromancers, we love dead bodies, they're all over the place. There's blood everywhere.
Yeah. They're like, I love this.
Yeah, this is great. And they just start ringing their bells and bringing all these, like, corpses back to life, because that's what they do. And, like, they make the One Reborn.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's some confusion over, like, did Mensis make the One Reborn? Were they trying to make their own Great One? But, like, I think it's pretty clear from what you see that the One Reborn is literally just, like, it's a collection of all the dead bodies that were in Advent Plaza. And the Bell Maidens just ring their bells and it like, forms into this huge sort of, like, zombie golem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I have another thing that maybe Bean can answer because she's a great Micolash psychologist. So the red moon that's supposed to like blur boundaries between the worlds and all that, and like it even makes the amygdala visible to us, right? After
Yes.
the red moon happens, that's what's supposed to beckon cause. But then Micolash is somewhere in his own nightmare trying to beckon him. Why isn't he in Yahar Ghul when this happens?
When the red moon hangs low, it's like it basically separates the Great Ones, the realm of the Great Ones and the nightmare realms from reality. So it's like the veil is kind of dissipating at that point. So it's weird because he's already kind of in. It seems like he's already been in the nightmare, like for
I would
at
say
least
that,
a
yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't think it doesn't seem like it's another confusing thing because I know they've been trying to beckon a red moon. I think that they were just like confused as to why it wasn't happening, unless it's common knowledge that Rom is holding the red moon back.
I think it is.
Is it?
I think Mensis were planning to kill Rom anyway, because you can summon a Mensis guy to fight Rom.
Yeah, because you can summon Damien.
The other thing is the note in the little sort of area before Erden Chapel, that like study. It's kind of like not clear. It just says like the Bergenworth spider is hiding the ritual and keeps our lost master from us. And like there's a lot of like, what exactly does this mean? Is it referring to Willem? Is it referring to like, is the spider Rom, or is the spider Patches? Is the spider the amygdala? And like, we've gone over this a lot in the last 3 years, and the simplest we can do, looking at it in like English and also in Japanese and like going over all the different scripts and everything, is that it was written by someone from Mensis, and it's saying that the red moon, the Bergenworth spider being Rom, is hiding the ritual, meaning the Mensis ritual that is calling the red moon. It's like obscuring that, and the lost master it's referring to is Micolash.
Micolash, because of the
the
Japanese actually has that, right?
Yeah, it's the confusion came from the way that in English Willem is referred to as Master Willem.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, oh, lost master Bergenworth spider, it's Master Willem. But looking at the Japanese, it's like it uses it doesn't, in the Japanese always calls him like Sensei Willem. So it doesn't use Sensei, it uses Master, which is like, I think they call Micolash that as well at some point. So
okay,
yeah, so it does seem to be referring explicitly to Micolash, and like, yeah,
it seems like there might have been multiple different types of experimentation going on within Mensis, because you find all those mirrors. So perhaps there was still something going on in Yahar Ghul. Obviously, there's something going on in Yahar Ghul at the same time that Micolash would have been in the Nightmare of Mensis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you guys were talking, I just understood what my problem is with this whole thing and why it didn't make sense. What I think Micolash should have done, logically, is have the ritual in Yahar Ghul, but have Murgo there as well. Because this is where you're blurring the boundaries and removing the veil. So if Kaz shows up, Kaz should show up like where the red moon is, looking for the baby, which is Murgo, and it should be in the real world and not in the nightmare.
But I think the deal is that like Micolash is trapped in the Nightmare of Mensis and can't leave, and that's why they need the red moon.
Okay, but why did he go there in the first place? Couldn't he wait?
To get Murgo, right?
Well, okay. The thing about Murgo is that they presumably had Murgo all game, because if you you can hear Murgo crying. I think the breakpoint is 60 insight. You hear Murgo.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you get 60, if you co-op against Cleric Beast or whatever, or just go into New Game Plus, at the very, very beginning of the game, Murgo's always crying. So they've always, like, since before the game began, they have had Murgo in the nightmare. And like, the way Micolash, when you kill Micolash, he says, like, now I'm waking up, I'll forget everything. Makes it sound like he's done this before. Like, he's used to sort of going to the nightmare and then suddenly, like, he wakes up, he forgets what he learned, he goes back into the nightmare. Like, he's been going back and forth from the dream for a very long time. And something we assume it's Rom because of that note in Erden Chapel. Like, Rom is keeping our master from us. Whatever Rom is doing to hold back the Red Moon has, like, shut off, like, locked off Mikolash's, like, consciousness from his body. And that's presumably why, like, the Micolash body you find in Yahogul is like a mummy at this point, because he's been, like, his body has just died. And he's been in the nightmare for a very long time, but, like, he doesn't understand, like, time anymore, and he thinks he doesn't know how long he's been there, and he thinks that he'll just wake up again.
Okay, so the way I think I can now be at peace with it, because it kind of makes sense to me now. So basically what happened was Micolash kidnapped Murgo for the ritual in Yahar'gul, but then, let's say, to hide Murgo from other people or whatever, he put Murgo in his own little loft, and then he would go back and forth between Yahar'gul and the Nightmare of Mensis. But then one day, Rom is like, no, and Micolash kind of got stuck there while going between the two worlds or whatever, while visiting there.
Yeah.
And then he stayed there, and then the ritual stayed here. And so, like, it would make sense if it wasn't intentional. Like, if the long-term plan was to have the Red Moon and Murgo in the same place so that Cos shows up.
Yeah, because, like, when you encounter him, he specifically says, like, we won't abandon the dream, no one can catch us, no one can stop us. Meaning, like, he's performing the ritual in the dream away from everything else.
Wait, what ritual is he performing in the dream?
In the ritual he's performing in the dream is beckoning Cos using Murgo.
Mm-hmm.
But then why does he need a Red Moon in Yahar'gul?
No. The ritual in Yahar'gul isn't him. That's the rest of Mensis. And what they're doing is they're creating the Red Moon to break down the barriers further. So that, like, firstly they can... The Red Moon... Micolash needs the Red Moon as part of beckoning Cos, because that will break down the barriers, like, between the physical world and the dreamlands. It makes them more malleable. I think that's why the corpses in Yahar'gul are fused into the wall, because, like, kind of the barriers broke down briefly and everything was fluid. So people got trapped in stuff.
But he doesn't need to break down the barriers because he's already in the dreamland. So Cos can just come on over from Cos's dreamland to Mikolash's dreamland.
I think he can't contact Cos unless the Red Moon is out.
Mm-hmm. I think it's integral to have the Red Moon out in reality, like not in the Dreamlands, and then also be functioning at the same time in the Dreamlands to try and get this pulled together.
I think he got it wrong. I think he could have just contacted Cos from the Nightmare of Mensis.
But the thing is, like, he does contact something, but he contacts two great ones in the Nightmare of Mensis, but neither of them are Cos.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm right.
I'm not even sure what you were saying.
I don't know what you're right about.
What I'm saying is, you don't even need the Red Moon ritual. All you need to do is find a nightmare or a dreamland to chill in, and then other great ones will come over and visit from their dreamlands.
Yeah, but, like, for example, Erden can't impregnate Ariana unless the Red Moon's out.
Yes.
The implication is that, like, beckoning the moon presence in the hunter's dream is what creates the Red Moon, like, in the real, like, the moon is, like, the same in both. So, like, you need the moon to be red for shit to happen in the Dreamlands as well.
No.
Okay.
Only in the real world.
Okay.
Only in the real world.
I know, it's like, it's really confusing because, like, there is a large moon in the Nightmare of Mensis that is not red.
Exactly.
But in the hunter's dream, there is a moon that does go red. And it's like...
But isn't that the embodiment of the moon presence?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it?
It is. There's no ritual going on in the hunter's dream. Therefore, it is the embodiment of the moon presence, like Bean says. Thank you, Bean.
I think the thing with the hunter's dream and how that all goes down is literally not the same way that, like, you as the player are going about ascension in a completely different way that Micolash would have been going about it, because
the thing is, like, they did perform a similar ritual in the workshop. That's where the third chord comes from.
Yeah.
So, like, they brought a third chord to the workshop and tried to beckon the moon presence with that. Micolash is doing the same thing, but he has a different I guess his goal is different, because he just wants to meet Cos to help him ascend. Whereas we don't exactly know why Lawrence wanted to beckon the moon presence initially, because...
We know.
Why?
Because he wanted immortal hunters to fight the beasts.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
But you said we don't really know. And then I said, we know.
Yeah, we don't really know that. We're just assuming that.
No, we know.
Okay, we know.
Okay. I'm glad we're all on the same page now, Sinclair.
I'm sure there's like a 6,000 word Reddit post about why we're all wrong.
Yes, I think so. That actually reminds me of something that's a little bit of a tangent. That was a tangent, sorry.
No,
okay,
it's fine.
Anyway, back to Micolash.
Yeah, back to Micolash, the star of the show.
Yes.
So why don't you think Micolash is crazy?
I just don't. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. I mean, when you listen to his dialogue, obviously he's ranting or rambling, because it doesn't always make any sense, especially if you just started playing the game and you're like, well, I don't know what the DLC is. But the fact that he knows of Cos, and I know he would know, of course, being a Bergenwurst scholar, but he kind of seems to be like, he's like got a great one. He's like there's the chord that they had, that Mensis had, that he has. There's like all this other shit that seems to be falling into place. It's just not there yet. I think he might be crazy because he doesn't know how time works anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's crazy in terms of what he's actually doing.
Yeah, he's the closest you get to someone who succeeds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Other than the player.
Yeah. I think I'm like, I've done many runs. Actually the first run I did for Bloodborne, I got to Micolash and I was like, I just sat there. I refused to go. I was like, this is where I draw the line. I will go kill a spider to get the red moon to come out, but I refuse to go in there and kill a defenseless man with a cage on his head. He's not defenseless. He kills the shit out of me all the time. Yeah. But I refuse. He's such a meme fight. Oh, God, I love it so much. Just slap me with that fucking Agoribritus, please. Just slap the shit out of me. And every time he kills me, I have a friend that we ran through the game together, and he actually struggled with Micolash quite a bit. I didn't. I don't know why I didn't, but I was like, when I went in there to kill him, I was like, I'm gonna get it. I did it the first try, but my friend had a lot of struggles with him. And every time Micolash would one-shot me as I was a summon, I would just like clap. I would just be like, yes, son, yes, get there, please. Yes. Like, thank you for killing me. I get really excited about that. I do. And every time he kills me, I'm just like, yes. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. Please get there.
So, if Micolash succeeded in becoming a great one, what do you think would happen?
Bloodborne 2?
Bloodborne 2?
Oh my God, maybe Bloodborne 2 is going to be just that.
You know what? I was actually if there is a Bloodborne 2, I swear to God, it's got to be a prequel. If it's not a prequel, I'm not touching it.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to be able to like choose like actual factions and not just like whatever the fuck the runes are.
Yeah.
Like, oh, why can't you let me be an actual like choir member or like a Mensis scholar?
Yeah.
Like, those would be great factions. Why can't I do this? Can't do that in actual Bloodborne because everyone's dead. but, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be quality stuff.
Oh, let's look at the document. I completely forgot about it.
Oh yeah, my weird questions about like who has control over the Dreamlands and how that functions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Bean, who has control over the Dreamlands? How does that function?
I have literally tried to like figure this out because I've always been incredibly confused by the all of the mirrors in the Nightmare of Mensis because they're the same mirrors that are in Yahar'gul.
Yep.
And I've just the dog crows and the crow dogs, like that's some fucked up shit right there. That's definitely not coming from like a lot of the Marion type things, like the like Murgo's attendants and those types of enemies are very standard, I think, for like that because Murgo is there.
Yeah.
And then the giant lost children and the silver beasts are pretty standard as well because you find things like that in the Nightmare Frontier.
Yeah.
But the weird enemies, like the dog crows, like what is that? Like Micolash, like I can only think about it as him. Like
maybe.
I really don't know where they come from or how they got there, and it confuses the hell out of me to this day. I've just like literally just been looking at that, and then the marionettes as well because the marionettes that he summons are super strange.
Yeah.
Because they're like that. They look exactly like one of the paintings in Canehurst.
Yeah.
And you can actually find a chalice where the marionettes were there.
Yeah, it's like one weird chalice that you can't make anymore. It was like on one specific patch, and now you can't be recreating it.
I actually just found a chalice that worked that had them, but they're not functioning.
Yeah.
They're like falling down. They're like they fell over. They're like just there.
It was like you could make that chalice on like one specific patch. So like it exists on the server, but you can't make a new one. It's like it's floating around, but you won't be able to generate your own that works like that. Yeah,
I remember going there, but they seem to have turned off the marionettes because I actually went to the chalice.
Yeah, they don't have functional AI.
I was like, come on. And we kept trying to get them to wake up by using like the Madaris whistle, but they're just like textures. We just kept trying to kill the marionettes with Madaris whistle, but it didn't work. But those things are so strange. Like there's nothing out there that's like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it has anything to do with like the lore, or if it's just like they were like, we're gonna put these things in this boss fight.
I absolutely think it's the latter.
This poor man.
Because you're saying like they look like a guy from Canehurst, and they absolutely do. And I'm like 99% certain at this point that like they were just a thing that was going to be in Canehurst. They didn't put it in Canehurst, and they're like, oh, we'll put it in this Micolash fight because he needs ads. Because you can't just chase him. You've got to have like minions or something.
I mean, I love thinking of Micolash as a puppet master. In that regard,
yeah, it's really good because it matches with the doll.
Flavorful.
Like the Hunter's Dream's you've got Gurman and the doll in the Hunter's Dream, and then in the Nightmare of Mensis, you've got Micolash and his creepy puppets that he summons.
I know, it makes me really happy.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yes. So that's one of the things that those things really confused me because they seem like elements that have been not necessarily brought in by Micolash, but the fact that he's been there so long really harkens back to like the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath.
Yeah.
So where that one guy, like, what is it? King Kuranis?
Kuranis, yeah.
Yeah, he was able to alter the Dreamlands after he'd been there for quite some time.
He's been there so long that his body dies and he lives on in the Dreamlands, and he's able to like... It's like an afterlife for him, and he's able to dream up like a copy of the village he used to live in and things like that.
Yeah. And that's... I think that harkens... I think that I found that resonated really well with like Micolash and how that functions, but I know that doesn't have any like actual in-game lore pull, but I was like thinking about it in that way, and
like that's more interesting.
It is, and how there's a lot of just different things that are like that. Okay, another random thing. I spend a lot of time in the Nightmare of Mensis. I spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
I've looked at all of the books, and there is not a copy of How to Pick Up Fair Maidens.
Oh.
I swear there is not. The textures on the books are slightly different, but I haven't been able to find one. If there is one, I don't know, but I cannot find a copy of How to Pick Up Fair Maidens in the Nightmare of Mensis. Fun fact. I spent a lot of time looking. I don't use actual resources, I just go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richie spent a lot of time in the Nightmare as well, connecting it to Lauren and stuff.
Yeah. Silver Beast and stuff.
Well, yeah, I think the implication, and that like the DLC sort of confirms it, is that the Nightmare Frontier is like to Lauren what the Hunter's Nightmare is to Yharnam. It's just like left over, and that's why you find the Lauren Silver Beasts there, because they're specifically called Lauren Silver Beasts. And they're infected with the like vermin parasites that are jumping out of their bodies as they attack you, and you find like the construction of it with the huge glowing brain in the center and the two kind of parts either side of it. It looks to me like it's meant to be evocative of the Grand Cathedral. So this looks like maybe that was like the way this is all cyclical. That would have been Lauren's equivalent of the Grand Cathedral, and in place of the clock, you had this huge brain.
Oh.
And you find like the silver beasts outside, they still have like torches, which is, it's reminiscent of the way like it's an unused cutscene, but there's a cutscene of like the huntsman descending on the clock tower with these burning torches. So it's almost like this is a snapshot of Lauren just as it was falling apart and everyone had turned into a beast, and there was this huge like cathedral in the distance with the glowing sort of sun looking down on it. And the brain itself, like, it's reminiscent of Rom in a sense, because like the idea behind Rom is a great one, but it was a failed great one who's like not enlightened enough. So she just becomes this sort of like dumb thing. But then like you have the brain, and the brain is described in kind of similar terms, that like it's a great one, but they talk about like the inside of it is rotten and the eyes don't work, and when you eventually confront it, it can't do anything. It just lies in this sort of abyss, like sort of wiggling, but it can't hurt you. And it's very reminiscent of like when you encounter Rom. Rom is in this like white void, and until she summons the spider, she can't do anything either. So it's like, was the brain the equivalent of Rom for this civilization? Like, was the first great one they made the brain, and then they sort of perfected the process and made Cause.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never thought about the brain of Mensis in that way, actually, because I was always really confused as to what it was doing. Like, I'm just
the thing about the brain is like there's a line that is really weird in the English script that says like, the third court allowed them contact with Murgo, but resulted in the stillbirth of their brains, which is a really weird way of writing that. It's like kind of awkward and strange, and the way it talked about like stillbirth of the brains. There was this theory that like the brain of Mensis is literally the brain of Mensis, that like everyone in Mensis kind of like fused into this weird gestalt brain entity. And that's what it's referring to. But I think like it's a lot simpler to just say that like this thing was just there in the nightmare they found it. Because when you see the brain, it's like it's on top of this tower, and outside of it there's all these Mensis corpses that have been frenzied to death. And like the way that you get there is there's a locked door that you need a key to open, and the key is very specifically like Mensis locked this door to stop you from getting to something you shouldn't find. So I think the idea is that like they were fucking around in like they projected themselves into this nightmare. They were fucking around, and they like somehow like dredged the brain up because it's got all these chains attached to it. And they said, "Oh, good, we found the great one," and they dredged it up, and it's this like giant like idiot brain that just killed them all. And then they're like, okay, that didn't work. But like,
well, yeah. Put that thing back where it came from, so help me.
Basically, yeah. And like, of course, like going over the Japanese script, it doesn't mention stillbirth at all. It's basically just like they contacted Murgo and their brains rotted away, or like their brains became decayed. So like it's not mentioning like the brain, not like the birth of a brain. Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense because that always confused the hell out of me. And I had a feeling that it was just like it's the brain's been there because of the menses or the corpses that you find.
And there's like literally like a housing for the brain that like was built.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like this thing just came into being instantly. It's like this building was always there and there was always a brain like connected to it. Yeah.
Oh man, oh wow, yeah. Oh. Like thinking about damn. Nice. This is what happens. I get really excited. I'm just like, yeah, nice. It's awesome.
So you had a comment here about the Bergenworth lecture building.
Yeah. Mm. Is it somebody? I think it was talking to someone. I think it was Herbert West about the Bergenworth lecture building being like a manifestation, like the second floor, like the memories.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, like, the game never really explains what's going on there. It just says like the Bergenworth lecture building is in the nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
but I remember having
it's so weird.
It's strange
because
but I think that it could be.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I think it could be. I mean, there's like a weird. The thing about the second floor is what gets me because there's that church giant.
Yep.
Like okay. Like I know it guards that little
the ladder,
like,
to
ladder
where
that goes down
is,
to Patches which is it's strange. Like I guess they were just like, you shouldn't go find Patches. Like it seems like something Patches would do, like put a fucking church giant right there in your way. But I don't really get it. And of course the slime dwellers are the same as they are in the lower level.
What if the church giant is just someone who wanted to go to college?
He's there on like a sports scholarship.
Yeah,
he's there. He's really good at swinging.
Yeah. Oh my God, Richie! He's playing that sport we talked about. Because he doesn't need to breathe underwater because he's dead. He's really well built physically, so he'd be perfect for like kicking or throwing a ball.
Yeah. Okay.
What's that sport?
Kickball.
No.
Blitzball.
Yeah, blitzball.
Blitzball. Oh, and Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about with Sanity SK beforehand.
Oh, so he's there on a blitzball scholarship.
I hate that minigame.
There you go. It all makes sense.
God, I just think about how I lose every time I play blitzball.
That's because you didn't have the giant on your team, girl.
It's true. I need to go get that church giant from Bloodborne and put it directly into Final Fantasy X.
Yes.
That's all I need to do. Easy. Oh my God. But yeah, I think the lecture building is just weird. I love it, but it's just very strange because the first floor leads out to the Nightmare Frontier and second floor leads out to Nightmare Mensis, and you're just like, okay. Like just shrug, okay.
It's also weird because the way that they display it as being in the nightmare is that it's just dark outside and there's purple mist.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but if you look at other places in the nightmare, like they have a sky and they have a ground, like the research hall in the nightmare, the Hunter's Nightmare, like you can see the sky out the windows and you can go outside and stuff. Mm-hmm. So this is like, it's just like, it feels like what it is, which is that like they made this area and cut it. And then it's like, I guess it's a dream now.
Yeah.
And they don't really explain any of it.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Sid. No.
Oh, well, I'm thinking it could kind of be explained. Let's say there's a bunch of Bergenworth campuses around, and somehow one of them...
That's my explanation.
Yeah. Well, somehow one of them got sucked into a nightmare, maybe possibly because of something Rom did, trying to block the Mensis ritual somehow. And so it's literally just sucked into this other place, and that's why it feels like it, you know?
Well, my old campus got demolished. Oh. So
is your campus also in the nightmare?
I think it is.
It might be. You might be able to recreate it from my memories.
Yeah, there you go. Let's try that. Anyone got a Mensis key?
Yeah, you do.
I do. It's at home. Well, it's in Virginia, but it's still there.
There we go.
Well, I've got like a lake and a chair and a spider, so
Oh, good.
Oh yeah.
we're almost
So
there.
we got Willem, we got Micolash.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got this. I think
Yeah.
that it definitely just seems like they cut the lecture building from like Bergenworth proper, and then just was like, we're gonna put this here for no other
that's
reason.
literally what they
like
did.
no other.
Yeah.
Well, I think like they felt like they couldn't cut it because there's like stuff there that you need.
Yeah.
There's like the note mentioning the 3/3
Yeah.
chords, and there's like references to Lawrence, and there's like some runes and shit that you couldn't get elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I think like, yeah, we don't know exactly why they cut Bergenworth, but it looks like, I guess they cut it and they were like, we have to like, this stuff's still important, so we'll be
Yeah.
like in the nightmare.
Yeah, but also the game, like the first time you play it, it seems really long because it's like, oh, long and scary. But then when you replay it again, it's not that long at all.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they cut that, it would make it even shorter.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like super short. Like I can get to the woods in like 2 hours. Like if I like pick up everything and like don't skip dialogue cutscenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you think that works? Like you mentioned being in the document where you touch the corpse of Micolash and you get transported into the nightmare.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like you get Micolash is a gateway to get to the lecture building, which
Yeah.
is odd because then you have to go through a big door to get to
Yeah.
the Nightmare of Mensis, which doesn't make any sense to me because he's in the Nightmare of Mensis. Why wouldn't his body take you there?
Like the whole thing would make more sense if the amygdala took you directly to the Nightmare Frontier.
Yes.
And Micolash took you directly to Nightmare of Mensis without this like sort of buffer zone in between.
Yeah, I was just thinking that that's part of the reason why I think that it could like at least the second floor of the lecture building is like a manifestation of his memories because you literally have to interact with his corpse to get there. So,
And you could also look at the lecture hall as like it's like the two paths that diverged from Bergenworth, where like one path went to the Nightmare Frontier and the other half went to the Nightmare of Mensis. Because you find like church shit in the Nightmare Frontier.
yeah, and then there's
Yeah.
church. Is there church hunters? I know there's random hunters, but is one of them?
Yeah, there's two church
That's
hunters. There's like, one of them is explicitly a church hunter. I don't know if the other one
I think the other one's wearing like the hunter set, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. And one of them has like blood drunk eyes, which we only just found out. And I'm like,
Oh.
they had this planned out a long time ago, didn't they?
Oh wow. Huh.
Like one of them has one milky white eye.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Jeez, they had that stuff. They definitely had the DLC, at least some of the DLC planned, and then I guess something happened and it just turned into something.
Just ran out of. Well, it got delayed like a couple of times before it came out, so I think they were just running out of time.
That's fair. That's why it's all kind of just one
Yeah.
big conglomerate,
One big dream.
big dream thing that happened.
You were also asking about mirrors.
Oh, the mirrors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Yep, the mirrors.
the mirrors are weird because I was saying earlier about the mirrors being the same as they are in Yarhargul, and then Micolash utilizing them in his boss fight for teleportation.
Yeah, he jumps out of one and then he pops out of the other,
Which is
one,
really
like a
reminiscent
portal.
of Moonside Lake with Rom being like a portal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that's I think exactly what is going on with them. Because like the way that Moonside Lake kind of quote unquote works is that like it's reflecting the moon. So like with the moonlight on the lake, you can kind of like if you imagine like the moon's reflected in the lake. So when you look down into the lake, there's another moon. So that's kind of what you're jumping into the reflection of the moon, which is treated as though it's its own moon. So like in Yarhargul, there are those mirrors everywhere. And like there's one specific mirror that you get to like at the very start, and there's a corpse in front of it, and the corpse has frenzied cold blood on it. And depending on how you play it, it's probably the first time you'll see frenzied cold blood. It's like up until that point, you find like thick cold blood, and it's like level 2 or 3. Then you find that one, and it's like frenzied cold blood 7 or 8, and it's directly in front of one of those mirrors. And it's like the only mirror in that area that's uncovered. So I think the idea is like the mirrors, the light of the moon is shining on them, and they're acting as almost like a gateway to the dreamlands, and that someone I guess like looked into the mirror when the moon was on it, and that like had some effect on them.
That would make sense. It's kind of like, because I was thinking of it like it's like scrying, like looking into another dimension.
Yeah, and that's probably why Yahogul gets so fucked up when the red moon happens, because it's just all of these mirrors reflecting the light of the red moon everywhere.
And they're like, shit, we gotta cover this bitch up.
Yeah, and it's just like bang, and just like there's just red moonlight everywhere, and everything's just destroyed.
Yeah, everything just gets totally eviscerated.
Yeah.
Just completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm glad I'm thinking of the mirrors in the right way, because I was just like, it always like was like, well, there's mirrors everywhere, and then they're just like, and then somehow or another, Micolash is like, let's try and jump through a fucking mirror, and it works in the nightmare. But did it work? Like, did you just smack into some mirrors a couple of times and figure it out, or what? Like. So that's a thing. That's a thing with the robes. Which I think that the robes are interesting, because it's just like, hey, Micolash has been wearing the same clothes for 50 years. This idiot needs a fucking bath. Just like, wow, do you know that you could wear something else? Did you know that? Is that an option for you?
Do you think he's just like really pretentious about the fact he went to Bergenworth?
Maybe. I think he just like is.
Yeah.
I think he's just a gross nerd that doesn't know how to change his clothes. But that's just. He doesn't know how that works. I don't think he has time to think about that. I think he has like. He doesn't have time to think about like how stupid he looks at all. And I'm just like, this is great. That's the life I want to live.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever watch The Office? You know, Andy from The Office who always brags about being from Cornell.
Yeah. It's like that. He's like, I went to Bergenworth. Yeah, so did you and a bunch of other fucking people. God. It's weird because the other Mensis scholar that you see, which is Damien, wears the same thing.
Yeah, it's just like the same. Exactly the same, just a different person.
Yeah, and then Edgar wears the capeless version.
Yeah.
And it's just like, did they just steal a bunch of uniforms from Bergenworth?
Yeah, no, I think that's literally what happened, because in Bergenworth, if you like get Yuri's attention and then hide from her, she goes to the chest where the uniform is. Like, she stands there. Oh,
okay. Do you think that they were trying to have another?
Yeah, I think they're trying to infiltrate.
Yeah, they're doing another. Yeah, they're trying to put Yuri in there as well as Edgar, because Edgar's in the nightmare.
Yeah, because Mensis and the choir are like trying to kill each other throughout the game.
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah.
It's great. I love that. I love their little like.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm just like, yes, please. Like, good. Y'all just go kill each other. This is great. Because you find the choir member in your heart goal that has the Upper Cathedral ward key.
You get the impression that like the choir don't really know what the fuck is going on with Mensis, but Mensis know more than the choir do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get the impression that like the choir are just like they're a faction within the healing church. They have their own role and their own place they hang out. Whereas Mensis are more like a kind of secret society within the healing church who possibly have like members all throughout the church's ranks.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the impression I got.
That makes a lot more sense than what I was thinking, because there was, I forget what it was. Because I know that Mensis was formed prior to the choir being formed, or it's implied that it was. The choir wasn't always there.
The way the choir is explained is like the choir was formed maybe like 20 or 25 years ago, because the church like probably like soon after Lawrence disappeared, they got a bunch of orphans together and were like, we'll like put these orphans through this like child prodigy course and try to create like the next generation of like great minds to sort of lead us. So like the choir that you run into, they were orphans when the healing church was set up. So they're like significantly younger than everyone else. Whereas like Micolash is like, he's the character model data lists him as being just like mature, which I think the game considers like 40-ish.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got.
Yeah, so like if you imagine like he came from Bergenworth with Lawrence, like if he would have been like, if he was in his 20s at the time he leaves Bergenworth with Lawrence, that was 20 years ago. So he's now in his 40s and the choir are now adults.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah.
I mean, his face data also kind of shows that. I have a face data Micolash hunter that I've looked at on many occasions. He's a mess. He's a disaster. Put him in hats and you get a little scared. His face data is. If you put him in a hat that's not a Mensis cage, he looks pretty scary.
Yeah.
He's pretty frightening looking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He looks kind of like in The Simpsons when Lenny gets plastic surgery.
Yes, yes, he does. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Yep, that's a time. That's time. I was gonna say something and I can't remember what I was gonna say. Well, I guess there it goes.
You've got something about the Mensis cage, like does it do anything?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
I'm using my notes, but I'm also like getting like excited about other things, so
that's how we always do it.
Yeah.
I can tell you like what I think the base, like the design basis of that is.
Oh.
Because Bloodborne draws really heavily from Bram Stoker's Dracula, as in the film that's called Bram Stoker's Dracula, not the actual Dracula book.
I love that movie.
Yeah. The guards in the asylum, they have cages on their heads.
They do.
And yeah, the implication is like that's because the patients are dangerous and they'll like attack them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the idea is like that might have been where the imagery came from. The idea of like there's these sort of madman with a cage on his head is derived from this.
Now I have to rewatch this movie. It's actually really funny that you bring it up that it pulls a lot of inspiration from it, because I'm a one-track mind individual, and I had rewatched that film right before I got into Bloodborne. I was like really hyper into Bram Stoker's Dracula, that movie. Yeah. And then like I started playing Bloodborne and I was like, this is perfect. This is a great segue. Yeah. And now I understand.
Yeah, and like it draws so heavily from that, like the Thumerian look is based on how Gary Oldman looks as Dracula.
Oh my god, you're right.
Queen Yharnam just looks straight up exactly like Lucy looks in that.
Oh god, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Wow. That's amazing. Now I have to rewatch it and get really into it again. It's one of my favorite movies. I love that movie.
Yeah.
I love that. Sorry, now I'm all excited now. Okay.
No, keep going. This is what you're here for.
Oh, good. Just to get excited and just be like, ah! It's quite fun to be a part of this, because sometimes I'm just like listening. I'll be like, I'll sit here and I'll be listening to Richard and I'll just be like, am I listening to a podcast or am I on the podcast? Oh, I'm on the podcast. Let me disassociate for like half a second to forget where I am.
Yeah, and we have a whole podcast on Edgar, one of our best work.
Well, no, we don't. We have like half a podcast on Edgar, and the rest is me reading werewolf porn that I bought on Kindle. That was episode 17, 18, 19, 20.
Keep going.
Of the Snack Covenant, 21. Of the Snack Covenant. We discussed Micolash and also various Mensis-related things with Bean.
Yay!
If you enjoyed listening to Bean, you can watch her on Twitch and listen to a podcast she does if this is finished after she does the podcast. She is also part of Sinclair's Discord server. You can join it and talk to her there as well, along with other people.
She's like the best part of the server.
Oh no! You're too cute. Aww.
Unlike Richard.
Oh no, Richard's a good part too.
Richard ruins everything.
You know, like Goldtooth just tweeted that I ruined her fight against Gale.
Aww.
So she knows what I'm talking about.
It's like it takes like 24 hours with me for people to just start blaming me for everything that's going wrong. I also ruined Sinclair and Allison's stream by not being there.
No, you ruined it by showing up. Oh yeah, I
ruined it by appearing. Yeah, it was good until I arrived, and then you made mistakes.
I don't know. I had a really good. The one really good stream I had was when Richard was there.
Oh my God, Bean! Don't encourage him. And you'll be able to find Bean and all her social media in the description. And well, I forget, did you change your Twitter name recently?
No, my Twitter handle is still Fallerate, but my name shows up as local cage-headed friend.
Awesome.
You have like a DeviantArt account for your stuff as well.
I have a Instagram. My Instagram is a lifestyle. It's like lifestyle Instagram, so it's mostly like my art and then also my just random photos because I don't separate anything out because I'm a professional. So my Instagram is the same as it's Teeny Tiny Coffee Bean.
Awesome. I think that's it. Yay! Well, thank you so much for coming, Bean.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
It was super fun.
It was super fun.